Do 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 do.
Hello, Professor.
Ah! I kept an eye out for you.
That's terrible when you do that.
Is it? Can you see every burst vein and blood vessel in my bloodshot eyes?
So what actually are you investigating?
In my brandy eyes. I'm actually looking at some kit from the Cousins Wars.
Right.
As you know, we've got a huge collection of artefacts. When you study in detail different periods of history, it's important that you have a really good working knowledge of the different pieces of equipment.
Yes.
And so I've got them all, and you know, armours, and you see there's various items of armour and equipment here. And obviously, you know, I've got several different armours of this period. And if you fall off a horse at full gallop in 3/4 armour, it jolly well impresses you with what our ancestors went through.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You don't get a face like this without falling off a horse in full armour, you know.
A few times.
And and lances, when you joust, and, you know, you gallop full tilt at your enemy with your couch lance. Yes, a misspent youth if ever there was one. But no, these are the sort of things that people carried in Battle of Northampton, 10th of July 1460.
Yes.
And what we've got here is, well, it's the typical sort of knife of the period. These people, the soldiers, the military profession was the most noble of the manly arts. And so every Englishman, by law, had to have all the weapons of his, you know, his profession, the military profession. If he was an archer, if he was a crossbowman or a hand gunner, you know, villages, even towns, cities, had to provide a certain number of men, you know, capable and equipped for going to war at need. And so everybody who was anybody had stuff like this. We'd just fought the French for 100 years, which is what the French are for, by the way. And we'd won the battles. We won all the great battles of the 100 Years' War. And that's why the French love us so much.
They love us so much.
Yeah, they do. But we lost the war because the king, who was a bit French, you know, Henry the Sixth. This was Henry the Fifth won France. Henry the Sixth, his son, lost it.
Yeah.
And but still, you know, governments always mess up, don't they? We expect them to.
We do.
You know, completely.
It goes without saying.
Lose the plot. And but this is what Englishmen carried. So I'll just show you the sort of kit. They call this a bollock knife. If you look at it here,
yes.
how you know, interestingly shaped it is.
Yes.
But the reason for that, of course, is so if you're climbing up in the rigging of a ship, you can hold it in your mouth like this. If it got a big cross guard, you gag yourself.
Of course.
But you see, you pop it in your mouth. It's got a blunt piece. I don't know if you can see that piece there. They call this piece the ricasso. And so you can hold it like this. Do you see that bit's blunt?
Oh, yes.
You see?
Yes, I see.
It's not sharp all the way up, although this is sharp enough to shave with. But luckily, of course, I don't need a shave.
Of course you don't, my dear.
So you pop it in your mouth like this, and you don't slice your face open because the blunt ricasso.
Right.
Aha! And then you got it ready for when you need it.
Of course.
And you don't drop it on somebody on the deck below or drop it in the sea and lose it.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged knife, and it's used for parrying blows. In French, it was called a main gauche, the left hand. So you'd use it like a windscreen wiper, perhaps, to knock an enemy's weapon out of the way and then follow through with a blow.
I see.
So that's why it's shaped this interesting way. It's not to make it look more attractive, fairy wife. It's just the way it was.
Well, it is quite an attractive shape.
Yes, marvellous.
Yes.
This is one I made myself, of course. Look, here we've got, if you come in again, it's got other bits of kit here. When that's in there like that, you can't take this piece out. It's held in, you see.
Ah.
So, but if you do this, you can take this piece out and this is your little eating knife.
Oh, that's a dear
You eat
little
your dinner
thing.
with. Well, they didn't have knives and forks in those times. They had knives and spoons, and so you cut up your food and pierce. It's got a very sharp point, and you pierce your food and convey it to your mouth. You know, and so that lives in there as well. It's called a buy knife, and also just here you've got this little piece of kit.
Okay.
Can you see this? I don't know if you have to come in again. They call this a pricker,
Yes.
a vent pin.
Okay.
You can see it's made of bronze in this case,
Yes.
so it won't rust. You pick your teeth with it.
Nice.
See?
Nice.
After the meal, or you can get thorns out your pinkies,
Yes.
or Boy Scouts out of a horse's hoof.
Of course.
And it's used for that sort of stuff, so that goes in there. As I'm a medieval handgunner sometimes, I use that to vent my hand cannon,
Right.
so that you know, it cleans out the touch before you put your priming in. Hangs on your belt, this side here,
Right.
so you can get it with your left hand
Of course.
at need, you
Yes.
see. On the other side you've got a sword. Hold on, there's going to be a clumpsing of stuff here if I'm not careful. Just stay there.
Doesn't want to.
I'll tell you, these items have often got a mind of their own.
They've got a mind of their own.
Here we've got a sword of that sort of period, 1400s, you see.
Okay. Yes.
And this is the hand and a huff sword, as it's called, sometimes with straight quillons, but as we're in the year 1460, these quillons were sometimes curved like this. That's not to protect your hand, this bit here, by the way. That's to, if you're on horseback, you've got to imagine me on old Dobbin,
Yes.
our farm horse, when I'm called into action for His Majesty, I don't know, King Henry VI or Warwick the Kingmaker or the Duke of Buckingham. Actually, I'll tell you a little bit about the Duke of Buckingham before we finish this. He was one of the generals, if you like, at the Battle of Northampton. And so you can see the sword then is used when you're on horseback. You've got a sword in your right hand, and yet you steer your horse with the reins. So you hook that to the rein and steer him around to the right.
Yes, of
See?
course. Yes.
And that's what that's for. They found a bent quillon you could do that with. It does also protect your hand, but usually your fingers through there, and that's a hand and a hoof sword. So you deliver a tremendous blow, tremendous, and you can split your enemy in half, as Will Shakespeare said. Unseamed him from the nave to the chaps and fixed his head upon our battlements in the Scottish play. Because you never say Macbeth, oh no! But not in the theatre anyway. And if you want your horse to rear up and use his hooves as a weapon, you hook that through your reins and draw backwards and upwards, and he'll rear. And you can use these massive hooves, because these were hobby horses, as they called them, not little hobby horses, sticks with a wheel on the back. No, these are the Irish hobby that we had at the time, which is a heavy sort of ride and drive horse, so that you can carry a man in armour. But this gives you a tremendous reach. I mean, look, I can touch you, and you're about 7.5, 8 foot away.
Yeah.
If I lean forward, you see.
Yeah, it's coming remarkably close.
Yeah, it is. But so this is the sort of hand and a huff sword, which was typical of the 1400s. If I hold it like that, you'll see the shape of the hilts here.
Yes.
Again, this is one that I made. It's not an original, it's a copy. But the Duke of Buckingham, you remember I told you about the Duke of Buckingham, who actually was killed defending Henry VI at the Battle of Northampton. He was one of the judges of Joan of Arc.
Wow.
Way back. You've heard of Joan of Arc.
Absolutely.
Saint Joan, the witch, who was actually burned at the stake, not for being a witch and hearing voices from God. They say when a man speaks to God, or when a human speaks to God, that's prayer. But when God speaks to man, that's schizophrenia. But she was obviously a bit touched, like most French people. But she she was burned at the stake for wearing men's apparel and using men's equipment. That's what she was actually killed for. Burgundians flogged her to the English because they were short of money, like they always are, and the English burnt her at the stake. But before that, the Duke of Buckingham drew his dagger and made to stab her.
Good heavens.
It was nearly the. It was
gracious.
it was nearly the shower scene from Psycho.
Good gracious.
He was a very hot-headed man.
Yeah.
And that's how Warwick, the kingmaker, who was a mentalist, could use his balmy temper against him and draw him out and nip him off at Northampton, as he did in the water meadows to the north of Delapre Abbey on the 10th of July 1460. It took 4 people to drag him off.
Good
And
gracious.
save Joan of Arc so that she could be burnt at the stake later.
Save her for the fire,
Here it is.
yes.
Joan, how do you like your steak? So what we've also got here is a thing called a buckler, which is the typical little shield that was used at the time of the Cousins' Wars, the Wars of the Roses. It's got a hook on it to hang it on your belt.
Yeah.
So it hung on a sword belt to the left. Your sword hung on your left, your knife hung on the right. And this bit of kit here could be used to ward off a blow. So when someone came at you with a sword, for instance, and made to whack you over the head, you stop him and push it away.
Yeah.
You see, so if he makes to cut your leg, you can use it like that, but at the same time stab with your own sword.
Right.
You see, you try to aim for the eyes if you can, the eyes or the throat. If you stab him in the chest, you might kill him, but it might take 15 minutes for him to die. And in that time, you can do an awful lot of damage to your credentials, to your military credentials. So what you do is you use this. You can use it actually to hit. You know, if you do this to a man's throat, you see, or to his nose. Imagine that on the bridge of your nose, or in your teeth.
Wow.
And I've actually seen that.
Clack.
I've actually seen that. Clack, yeah, that's exactly the sound it made, funnily enough. And friends of mine were doing a bit of sword and buckler play. Come on then, you want some? And we were 50, 60 feet away. And one of them hit the other one in the mouth. And it went click. And he went, and spat his 4 front teeth out.
Oh my
Boys
goodness.
will be boys.
Oh, dearie me.
So that's the... but it was a good life.
It's a good life.
So these are some of the weapons: a hand and a huff sword, you know, a knife with a by knife and a pricker, and a buckler. You know, Froggy went a courting and he did ride with his sword and buckler by his side. So that's the buckler.
Fantastic.
You know, we're talking about hand-to-hand combat, mano a mano, as they call it. You know, Spanish.
Hand to hand.
You know, hand to hand.
Yes.
And so you get close enough to your enemy to shove that through his eye. Of course, he's going to try and do the same to you. So watch yourself. It's dangerous out there.
Certainly
Have fun
is.
with history. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.